Let me recognize the gentleman from New York who wishes to strike the last word, Mr. Swazi.
Mr. Chairman, the American people are hungering for members of Congress to work together to actually solve the problems we face in our country. And I want to thank you for your leadership in trying to promote bipartisanship and encouraging people to work together to solve the very real problems that we face here in the country. And I want to congratulate my colleague, Stephanie Murphy, on introducing this bill as a new member of this committee, and for the work and cooperation of Representative Walorski. I yield back my time.
And with that, let me recognize the gentleman from New York, Mr. Swazi, to strike the last word.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I again want to reiterate our thanks to you for promoting bipartisanship in this committee, and I just want to repeat something I've said often before. We've seen tremendous growth in this country since the 1980s. We've seen a 1,200% increase in the Dow Jones. We've seen a 600% increase in the GDP, but workers' wages have not gone up. Workers' wages are less than 20% growth during that similar time period. There's a lot of reasons for that: reductions in unionization, automation, globalization, the impacts of rising healthcare costs and prescription drug costs. And we're also seeing a decline in retirement savings by employees. As has been pointed out by several people here today, 55 million Americans do not have a retirement plan. And I think that everybody on this dais agrees, both Democrats and Republicans, that if you're willing to work 40 or 50 hours a week and you're willing to work 48 or 50 weeks a year, you should have a decent life. That's what America is about. You should be able to work hard, and in return for that, you make enough money so you have a place to live, you have health insurance, you can educate your children, and you can retire one day without being scared. I think all Democrats and Republicans believe that if you're willing to work hard in America, you should have a decent life. It's just not happening. And too many workers have been left behind. And unfortunately, we have not seen enough over the past 2 years to try and help workers get ahead. And I want to thank my colleagues here today for the bipartisan way that they're looking at supporting this legislation that's before us right now, because it is encouraging more working people in America to have an opportunity to save for their retirement. With that, I yield back, Mr.
Thank the gentleman. The chair would recognize the gentleman from New York, Mr. Swazi, to strike the last word.
Mr. Chairman, at the risk of being repetitive, I want to thank you again for promoting the bipartisanship here today with the third bill that we're supporting on a bipartisan nature here today, and thanking the ranking member as well. I also want to thank Chairman Lewis and Ranking Member Kelly for their work on this particular bill. The IRS is broken. It's getting worse. There was a 200% increase in errors filed this year so far based upon the new tax bill that was supposed to simplify filings. There's been a 200% increase in errors. And the IRS is also not doing as great a job as we needed to do regarding audits and regarding customer service. In fact, as part of the testimony from the Taxpayer Advocate, we discovered that the IRS only answers 18% of the calls that it receives, and the calls that they do answer are after a 17-minute wait period. Imagine a taxpayer calling up, trying to get assistance, and they have to wait for 17 minutes. Most of them drop off, and only 18% of the calls get answered. This Taxpayer First Act, under the leadership of Chairman Lewis and Ranking Member Kelly, is a good step forward. I want to thank Congressman LaHood, who asked me to join him in a piece of legislation to empower taxpayers and to require the IRS to answer taxpayer assistance directives that are offered from the Taxpayer Advocate within a timely period, and take actions to try and address the concerns that are raised by the Taxpayer Advocate. With that, I yield back.